What's up, Swolgers? Thanks for joining me on today's video where we're going to talk about density training. This is an awesome method of working out to help you maximize your gains in minimal time. Now, before we jump into this, welcome. My name is Steve Coyne. Do me a favor, click the like button and hit subscribe to get more content on all things strength and getting swole in the mind, body, and soul. Okay, so density training. This is something that I sort of accidentally discovered after I bombed out of a powerlifting meet. I was pissed off and frustrated. I vowed to never lift again. So I decided to jump into prison body weight workouts. Okay, so what I did was try out some circuits of some pretty simple compound movements. So it's just push-ups, pull-ups, dips, squats, chin-ups, things like that, but in a limited time window, trying to do as many rounds as possible. I really thought out the gate, oh, that's not going to be that hard. No big deal. What I found, though, after the very first workout shocked me. Not only was it much harder than I thought, but I had the biggest pump I had ever had in my entire life up to that point. Now, I had been in the gym lifting weights for probably 6-7 years at that point, but I never felt so full and big in my entire body. So I knew right away that I was onto something. Over the course of 14 months, I actually followed the exact same program. I was able to progress it and ramp it up because of the structure of it. It helped me to understand and learn the natural progressions, the natural ways to advance through, doing more work in a set time, then doing more work faster, then doing harder work, and then doing that harder work with heavier weight, heavier loads. So even though it's just body weight, I do things like just add a weighted vest to the exact same workout, right? So it really was pretty amazing. And when I eventually returned to lifting, I was pretty surprised to find out, not only did my body just feel really good, but I actually got stronger in many ways, even though I never touched weights. There were some guys that were in the back deadlifting, and I remember I was just like kind of jonesing to go give it a shot. I think, maybe it was like 455, 495 on the bar. And like, oh, I could have done that easily when I was still lifting. I went and ripped it with no warm up, and it was nothing. I was stunned. I hadn't touched a weight in a year plus, and I was still moving it maybe better than I ever had moved it before. So this is why I really like this style of workout, is because it just really works at helping you get a lot of gains, kind of whatever level you're at. So what is exactly density training? Let's get into it. Density training is maximizing your volume, skill, and gains under any circumstance, but works especially well if you have limited time, equipment, or certain conditions and parameters that need to be met, okay? So what we're looking to do is we'll set out a certain time. We're going to set out a certain amount of lifts, movements, and we're just going to maximize what we can in that window. So more on that in a second. The benefits of density training include efficiency. By setting these parameters, by creating time windows and writing these workouts in a certain way, there will be no wasted time. So back to this point of, if you're somebody that can only work out for a short window, you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck with this style of training. Now, that's also true if you have limited equipment. So if you have a home gym with only a handful of things, or if you have no equipment whatsoever, just body weight stuff, this really helps you maximize with all the gains with what you have or don't have, right? So versatility and adaptability is, like I just saying, whatever you have at your disposal, you're going to be able to get the most out of it. Whether it's a lot, it's a huge, fancy, well-equipped gym, or it's nothing but four walls in your own body, you're going to be able to really get a lot done, okay? Intensity. One of the biggest problems a lot of people have with making gains is the ability to push themselves, into a zone where we're going to force those adaptations and force some growth to get bigger, stronger, more conditioned. If you follow this style and you really stay consistent, it forces you to ramp up your intensity. There's just no two ways about it. right? So this is something that like automatically tricks you into getting gains if you have a problem pushing yourself harder, okay? Even if you only make small percent increases week in, week out, it's impossible for it not to turn into those compounding gains and get you some results. Lastly, auto-regulation. This does an awesome job at teaching you how to manage things like intensity so you can scale up or down or do whatever you need to do to adjust your workouts to how you feel on the day, to what your goals are and the pace that you're moving towards them, and just be a good athlete in general. Like really works on so many things across the board for pacing, focus. It's awesome. So what are the principles of density training? We have to track our volume. This is non-negotiable. For this to work, we have to track every workout, how much we are doing, so we can increase, even if it's by 1%, the next workout, okay? Or even the next week. If we don't progress every workout, that's okay, but we need to find that steady pattern where if we're doing repeats, the same workout twice in a week, maybe the next week is when we make that increase. But we can only know we're doing a real increase if we track with certainty, right? 2, you have to set time parameters. So when we're tracking volume, we're looking to get work done in a time frame. So when we're talking about these things like limited time or equipment, if you're somebody that has a very short window to work out, it's 15 minutes. If you have longer time and can have a good full warm-up, this and that, you could do some of these things in 45 minutes. There's really any option on the table here. It's up to you. Now, this is also not just for an entire workout. You can use this as, a main movement structure or an accessory movement. So there's things like just skipping ahead, the deck of pain push-ups, which sometimes I'll program in people that need a lot of like good chest volume, but I don't want them to like do a lot of like pressing with heavy weights, where we'll just use a deck of cards. We'll flip over one card at a time, perform that number of push-ups to get as much volume as you can in 15 minutes. That is like a structure we can use as an accessory to like a pressing day, again, to build a lot of chest volume without having like a really taxing lift, right? So it doesn't have to be the full workout, but that's a 15-minute one there. Now, let's keep using this example with the deck of pain. The way that we get better and we get more and more and more volume is to keep doing it. You can't just like do this workout, once, never come back and expect to get the results from it. The results is showing up over and over and over again with consistency. Now, with that consistency, you need to plan your progressions and goals. So sometimes you need to look at some like short-term, goals so you know what you're going for and when to make the changes. So back to this deck of pain. If you can do the entire deck in 15 minutes, that is awesome. That's a very admirable goal. So what do you do then? Then you try to complete the deck in less time, less time, less time, less time, less time. Okay? It's that simple. So that's an example of like a short-term goal where you're saying, all right, here is my structure. My first goal here, giving another example, is like, I want to complete 10 rounds in 45 minutes. Maybe out the gate, you're not going to complete those 10 rounds. It might take you 4 weeks to complete 10 rounds in 45 minutes. But then you have a goal in mind. I'm going to do those 10 rounds in less time. Or maybe you add reps. Maybe it's, 5 sets of 10 on different exercises that you're doing in 45 minutes. And then, okay, well, now I'm going to try to do 5 sets of 12 in 45 minutes. So that's what I mean by planning your progressions and goals. So you have somewhere that you kind of have an idea of what you're shooting for. You shouldn't just really wing this, right, to get the most out of it. So when we're structuring it, consider all of those things. How much time do you have? You're somebody that has a very limited window of working out, then something like 15 minutes might be it for you. If you were on the more beginner end, or just somebody with poor, less conditioning, might make sense to do some of these things for 15 to 20 minutes and have your short-term progressions and goals to be doing it longer and longer and longer, right? So that's, how we start with something like time. But what's important is you just kind of pick something, stick to it for a short block, and continue to get more and more and more done with it, right? What equipment do you have? Like I said earlier, this is a structure that can be used with body weight, with a full gym, and everything in between. So plan accordingly. Now, when we're doing our kind of assessment and how to structure this out, think about exercise selection and what is most appropriate to your goals. If you have like an upcoming strongman competition and this is something you want to try out, it doesn't really make sense just to do, only bodyweight stuff all the time. If you want to like have a really big chest, you want to make sure that you're doing a lot of, dumbbell presses, even some like chest flies, this and that. But what I would generally recommend is to try and have as many compound exercises as possible. That's where you're going to get the benefits of like a lot of full body conditioning in with the strength and size gains that come with packing all of this volume and intensity into the short time frame. So doesn't mean you can't, do some like upper body workouts where you might have some like isolated extensions or curls. Like that's cool, but try to start with more compound movements when we're choosing this out. So here's some of the ways that you can use in a program. I sort of touched on this earlier. Circuits are a really good way to do like an entire workout. So one of the things that I really love is the bodyweight bodybuilder. So one example of that would be, again, let's say 6 pull-ups, 10 tricep dips, 6 chin-ups, 10 to 12 diamond push-ups. So that's, something you could use like that in a structure where it is a circuit. I would typically add in like an ab movement or 2 to the end of that and repeat that for 10 rounds or until I hit 45 minutes. So that's like a full circuit. Another thing is a barbell complex where you could have 10 RDLs, 10 bent over rows, 10 shoulder presses, 10 front squats, 10 back squats, something like that, just for example. Trying to do as many rounds as you can in like 15 to 20 minutes. Now, if you don't really know what's realistic for expectations, you can always start light and work your way up. This is why it's important to set these goals and progressions, is because when we're tracking and knowing where we're starting, even if our expectations are way off, we can use this auto regulation feature to understand like what our appropriate progressions are, right? So hypertrophy, just consider like if that's your goal, this is where things like supersets or, you could use more isolation exercises to really ramp up certain body parts, but also generally things like in the 8 to 12 rep range, even if in a circuit, are going to do pretty well if your goal is explicitly hypertrophy. Strength, back to the rep ranges, typically lower reps. So, this could be something like, I'm going to get as many rounds of like 5 on a bench press as possible in 5 minutes. That's a really good way to, bump up your strength, keep those reps a little lower and build up. So once you hit your like predetermined target, if you would hit like 6, 7, 8 sets of 5 in that time frame, then add 10 to 20 pounds to the bar, kind of reset. You'll probably only get 3 to 4, rounds that time. Keep ramping up till you get 8 rounds in 5 minutes. Add more weight to it. Keep building up, right? Conditioning. So a good example of this is like a, like a cardio machine. I don't know if I wrote that down here. Calories on a machine. There's something you could do short and sweet or kind of for some longer, more slower cardio. So conditioning, as many calories as you can on an assault bike in 5 minutes. Or 30 calories as fast as possible. Or as many calories as you can in 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever, right? So that's kind of a really good way that you can, test your endurance and conditioning using that time frame. Again, it's all about like setting a time and improving week in, week out. So we did kind of already cover a whole lot of accessory stuff, but just one more example is, even doing something like you could do like, okay, I'm going to do as many sets of 8 on a tricep extension as possible in 15 minutes. This is something I actually learned from Josh Bryant and Julius Maddox. They call it tricep death, okay, where you take a weight on a cable stack that you could do for about 15, and then you do as many sets of 8 as possible in a, I think it was maybe 10-minute time window. You'd have to look that up, but they do that on, there's a video with Eddie Hall and Julius Maddox bench pressing in Daytona, so you can learn more about that there if you want to take a look. So that is, kind of how we can use this. So we've covered some of these uses in a program. We talked about the deck of pain. We talked about barbell complex. We talked about calories on a machine, 50 rep compound. That's just what I would call like, okay, my goal is to work with a heavy weight until I can hit 50 reps in 5 minutes. So I've done this before with like a dumbbell bench press. By the time that I can hit 50 reps, whether it's a 5x10 or, 10x5 or somewhere in between, then I would increase my weight 5 to 10 pounds and do it again. So that's, again, you're using the exact same structure. But let's say, I was doing 75s and I was doing 3 sets of 10. Next week, 3 sets of 12. The next week, 4 sets of 10. The next week, 5 sets of 9. And then that following week, I finally got to 5 sets of 10. I would then step back, go up to 80s or 85s, and kind of repeat that process. So, maybe if I took too big of a jump with like 85s, maybe I can only get like 20 reps in. But knowing what my short-term goal is, I could start with 20 reps and then work up to 24, work up to 28, 32, 36. It might take me 6 to 8 weeks to get back up to that 50 rep target. But that's how we can use this density training. Again, we're staying within that 5-minute time scheme for a movement to pack in and increase volume, right? Very simple. I also really like strongman circuits, or general physical preparedness. So just to give you an example on this is you could do something like pick 3 to 5 of your favorite strongman exercises, run them in a circuit as many times as you can in, again, time's up to you, 15, 20, 30, 45 minutes. Sandbag to shoulder, sandbag carry, sled drag, farmer's walk. Really, sky's the limit. Add in some dumbbell pressing, but circuit those around as many times as you can in 45 minutes. Now, what I want you to understand about all of this is that none of this necessarily means you have to work in that time frame the whole way through. So when we're talking about some of these things like the bodyweight bodybuilder or some tactical strongman conditioning, it is okay to rest. But part of the short-term goals that we're setting out should be to do the full length without any rest. That should be one of your short-term goals. Okay, so you should over time work up if we're doing some like conditioning or even hypertrophy stuff to keep moving the entire time. Strength work, you do need to have some rest. So just consider that physiologically, it requires rest and recovery in between sets to really lift for pure strength. But we can get a lot of strength gains still using this system. So just remember, if we're doing a conditioning circuit or bodyweight bodybuilder, it's okay to rest. Just track your volume so you know what your target is the next time you come back around to that workout. So let's say 45 minutes is your goal and you only did 2 rounds because you're so freaking tired, you had to rest a lot in between. That's cool. Next time, go 2.5 rounds. Next time, go 3. And you can slowly, bit by bit, develop your conditioning and force some gains because you know how much to progress. Okay? So that's kind of an overview on density training. Now, if you're still with me, you can check the link in the bio. I have a free ebook and some free programs on density training. So check that out below. It's on my Gumroad. There's a lot of other really cool ebooks and free guides that are on there. So take a look. Let me know what you think. You can always reach out to me and ask some questions if you need some help navigating this. But this is really an invaluable tool to help you with your training. So I hope you give it a shot and I hope you learned something today. So thank you for joining me. Really appreciate it. If you haven't already, please click subscribe, follow the channel, stay in touch, and have a championship day.